Good evening, and you're very welcome to our League of Ireland Women's podcast for the night after the Cup final. Essentially, we're joined by, as always, Aaron Clarke and, of course, Meabh de Burca, who I was supposed to leave off the screen. I totally forgot about taking her out, so she's in with us from the start. Meabh and Aaron, very, very welcome. Hope you're all warmed up after what looked like a fairly blustery day in Tala yesterday.
Yeah, it was. It was 21. Go on there, Aaron.
The funny thing about it is, it's like you're talking about a storm, and it was more of a Shelbourne storm than it was of an actual storm in terms of the weather itself. Like, the rain stayed away from the majority of it, which made it not too bad. But yeah, it's a long old day. Cup final days are, but it was one that I don't think you could have went to the bookies and put 20 different bets on. I don't think anybody would have put a bet on that scoreline, and especially in the way that it happened as well. It still, not gonna lie, still sort of reeling in the whole day that it was yesterday. I'm still dumbfounded. I've watched the goals back, I've watched everything back, and I'm still lost. And you don't normally say that after a game of football, but wow, yeah, Storm Ashley definitely had an impact.
We've seen these type of scores before. Like, Meabh did beat Cork at the same venue, about 6-0, I think, about 4 years ago. I could be wrong by a year or two.
It was 6-0, yeah.
Scoreline's not unusual, but I don't think anybody expected that going in. Meabh, if you were commentating for RTE yesterday, you seemed a bit speechless at certain times, given the way that the game went. Was that what you were expecting coming into it? Probably not.
No, I mean, yeah, like you said, I think everyone was expecting a close game, especially when it was first versus second in the league. Like, sometimes you will have a mismatch in the cup final, but I think this year, even more than the other years, there wasn't nothing to choose between them. Like, such fine margins during the league and the All Ireland Cup. Like, they played each other 3 times before it. There was two, each of them won a game, and then there was a draw. So really, like, it was hard to call. I think maybe just didn't swing it that much of a distance, but maybe Shelbourne squad was, on the whole, was better than Athlone's squad. Just, they seemed to be just almost run out of numbers just for that last game, but they did so well to have gotten the league over with, and they were deserving league champions too. I don't think anyone would deny that. So yeah, it was kind of, like you said, I was speechless. It was just Shelbourne, I think, just turning it on in style, really, and Athlone just had no answers.
Before we go any further in the conversation, if you're listening or watching the show and you want to get involved, ask a question, do drop us a comment below. We'll bring it in, and we'll have a chat with the experts in the game in terms of what happened yesterday in Tala Stadium. But it started fairly early. A fairly decent ball into the box from Rowan McLaughlin, not dealt with well by Athlone's defence. And I suppose first of 2 goals for Kate Mooney, who popped up to kind of stroke it home. She had a good day yesterday. So did Noelle Murray, 2 goals for her as well. But really, it was just a tour de force from Shels for the first half in particular. Second half kind of was nondescript, really, in terms of the game. It didn't really have much to offer either side, but Shels really came out of the blocks flying. Maybe, Aaron, your thoughts on kind of how that went? And
even before I do start to talk on how it went, the one thing that was evident, even from the first minute or two, was the breeze. Athlone just didn't seem to be able to deal with it at all. They didn't seem to be able to sort of get anything. Like, the first goal in particular, like, you're looking at that and you're sort of thinking, Katie Keane is coming. She sort of half stops. Kaylee Shine is there as well. It sort of goes and stops. Like, even the second goal, like the penalty, there's absolutely no need to make that challenge from Shauna Brennan. The ball is going away. You've got the two defenders over that side where the ball is. You've got a couple of defenders in the box, and it was just as if the occasion really got that wrong. And it's hard to say that, considering they're the league champions. They won the cup last year. But, like, the one thing that, and this is the cog that a lot of people aren't really talking about, like, the absence of Laurie Ryan cannot be understated from that team. I think Laurie Ryan's absence is probably the biggest of the lot, considering she's the glue that keeps them going, keeps them together. Like, there was no real inklings that Laurie was injured. She done the media day the other day. She was all well and good. I had heard when I got into the stadium at about 2:00, even before I looked at the team, that she was out and she'd an injury. But like it was kept so well under wraps. Everybody thought she didn't play against Galway just because it was just rest her, rest Maddie, away we go. But I just felt no Athlone player really got off the bus. And the other side of it for me is I feel Athlone are also very lucky that Brenda Tabe wasn't sent off for the kick on Kiva Keenan. Yes, Kiva sort of raised her hand a little bit the first time when they come together, but I thought there was nothing really in that. And then Tabe had a go the second time with the hand, and then the little kick I was surprised was missed by the liner. But like they get 7 goals in the first half, and once they start going in, you're sort of thinking, are Shels going to stop scoring? Are Athlone going to do something? Are Athlone going to turn up? But like the one thing that was evident for me is when Shels seen the ball over the top was working and Athlone couldn't deal with it, they just kept trying it. But like, when do you ever see a game that Leah Doyle and Jess Gargan score goals? But the funny thing about the Jess Gargan goal is she made a similar run against Shamrock Rovers last week. I was watching back a replay of a goal she scored for Shamrock Rovers last season against Wexford. It's very similar. The very exact same type of play. Gives the ball into the midfield and just continues that run. But like, it's nearly you'd expect a defender like that to be a deer in the headlights, and she was just so composed. Like, just when you look at it, I think it's rather than Storm Ashley yesterday, I think it was just Storm Shels in that first half, and they were just electric.
Meabh, can I ask you about the first goal, because I watched the highlights back, and there's a sandwich of an Athlone Town player. I'm not quite sure who it was. I can't remember off the top of my head. But in the build-up, before Roman McLaughlin gets the ball out of that challenge, 2 Shels players kind of sandwich the Athlone player. Ball falls loose, and McLaughlin whips that ball in. And again, it's not dealt with properly. But could there have been a free out? And does that change the trajectory of the game if Shels don't score so easily?
I think Aaron has strong thoughts by the sounds of it. No, I don't think it was. I'm not sure, but I didn't think at the time it was. But they seemed to win the ball. But yeah, it was definitely a defining moment, because if it was given as a free out, who knows how the game would have turned out. And I think the penalty as well. That moment was even more as well game defining, just because it led to the onslaught of goals after that. But yeah, definitely, I think like from Athlone's perspective, they were hoping that that it would have been given as a free out for sure.
Definitely on that. For me, I just thought it was coming. There was nothing in it for me, and it was one of them that if you'd have given that, I'd have thought it's pretty harsh. I will get the ref. We normally have referees we normally want to criticise and stuff like that. I actually thought the referee yesterday let the game flow quite a lot. I actually thought he didn't try and intervene as much as he probably could have. And I think a bit of the conditions as well. I thought that was a good side. But when he needed to sort of put the cards out, like you look at the first 10 minutes of the second half, players were making stupid tackles and sort of giving them a little bit of a back chat. And he was like, "Do you know what? Let's get the cards out. Let's just nip it for them sort of tackles." I thought the referee was quite good yesterday. Like when you look at Shels, like even she didn't get the credit yesterday because Rome had 2 assists and Noelle and Kate scored the 2 goals, but I thought Maggie Pearce as well yesterday was phenomenal going forward. I actually thought, as much as the 2 girls scored the 2 goals each, I thought Roman McLaughlin was probably very close as well in that player of the match conversation. I think herself and Kate and Noelle, like Noelle just showed up on a big day. Noelle was just superb on that day for me.
Let's talk about Noelle Murray, because I think we spoke at the start of the season about the transformation we saw in her from the end of this time last year to the start of this season. And she really seemed to, probably more than any player I remember in recent seasons, actually working on her own physicality and her own fitness levels. And she came back in fine form. And for someone at her stages of her career, because she's probably a similar age to you, Meabh, maybe a year or two in the difference. And like, with all due respect, you've moved on to a new stage of your life, and most of the players that you would have played at that era have too. And she's probably had her best season in a Shels shirt, despite not winning the league. Yesterday's performance was probably an epitome of that in 90 minutes.
Yeah, she'll be 35 on Christmas Day, but yeah, she was really. I thought she was outstanding. Like, she just seems to always find herself in space, but then obviously they say that with good players, just that's what they do. They create the space before you know it. And I thought she took the the goal, the strike from the edge of the box really well, and obviously the penalty, she just, was there was no doubt about it really when she was standing over that ball, and she just, it's like she, like you said, she seems to have developed even better, like different kind of different parts of her game as well, and she can still, like, she was still, even she got a nutmeg in on the sideline at one point, and it kind of goes unnoticed at this stage because she just does it all the time. You just grow to expect it from her, but she definitely has that bit of the spark and the creativity that that really kind of links Shelbourne together, and I think she links up really well with Kate Mooney up top, and as well as Roman McLaughlin as well. Like, the two of them seem to really kind of bounce off each other, and I'd say they're kind of a joy to play with, because I think the wind really suited them because they just wanted the ball on the ground, so it didn't affect them as much, and it did seem to help them when they did then get those balls into the box that Aaron was talking about earlier. Like, they seem to weather the storm just in the perfect way, really.
Everybody talks about, when it comes to Shelbourne over the years, the likes of Noelle, the likes of, a couple of years ago, the likes of Rebecca Cray, Rachel Graham. But like, if you look at this season, I think what's allowed Noelle to play a lot more has been Kate Mooney. I think Kate Mooney's been the revelation for Shelbourne, because she's allowed Noelle to sort of be deeper, be on the ball, be a lot more, like, even like some of the twists and turns that Noelle was doing yesterday. I also love the fact that when she had a tangle with one of the Athlone players, the Athlone fans sort of start giving it to her, and she was loving all that. She was just, she was loving the life of it. But like, you have to think, that's her 11th FAI Cup final. She's won 7 and lost 4 of them. Like, for someone like that, and to still be as motivated, and as you say, Breifne, with the work in the physique in the last season, I think a lot of credit has to be given to her, because the easy option is, when you get to that sort of time frame in your career, it's just to say, you know what, I'm not as committed. I'm happy. I'm still playing. But she wanted to push on. I think she's been very good for Shels. I think realistically, when Shels look back at this season, I think Shels will look at it as a little bit of a one that got away, because that start of the season probably killed them a little bit with the four draws in the opening 5 games, and then you look at the result against Bows late on, where they're the games they look back at. But I think you can definitely see Noelle is playing with confidence under Owen Wearing, and I think Owen Wearing has definitely installed something in this Shels team that the second half of the season they've been very good to watch. They've been very enjoyable. Like, the one thing, I don't know if EDs have noticed this, what's the common trend with the two cup winners from last year?
Oof.
They haven't won the league as well? I don't know.
No. It's probably that
like that in the year, like
the 12 months later they've lost to the team that they beat the previous year.
Nope. Both teams who have won the cup final the last 2 years have drawn with Shamrock Rovers in Tallaght Stadium on the last day of the season.
I'm pretty sure that has nothing to do with the cup final performance.
No, it was just a
I don't think Shels were too bothered about that result. They were resting their players.
Meabh, we've seen a few retirements of players from that era that Aaron talks about, her winning that first of 11. Sorry, I say playing in 11 cup finals. Of course, we will be reminded by Ger Canning yesterday that she lost that first cup final to you and your Galway teammates back in, I think, 2007. So it's been a long career for her, for both Raheny and for Shels, but we've seen some retirements of other players from that era in recent days and weeks. I suppose Niamh Burke and Steph Roach, probably the two, or Steph Zambra, been the two most high profile in the last 10 days. Can you see Noelle playing another season or two? Has she got it in the legs?
I'll answer that question for you, because I asked Noelle yesterday, and Noelle said to me she's going nowhere.
Yeah, Dave, I'll let you answer the question now.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just have a great crew kind of there as well. It seems to be an older generation, if you want to call it that, but they have there's the likes of Pearl, Rachel Graham and Gemma Quinn as well. They're similar age groups, so I suppose that definitely makes it easier when there's players still, like, not just players half your age playing, there's players your actual age still playing as well, your team. So yeah, I think that would definitely impact them, and I know Pearl is going as well for another year. So yeah, I think, like, why wouldn't you if you're still performing at that level and enjoying it as well? And they'll be hoping to, I think, for them, they'll be hoping to win the league again next year, to go a couple of years now without winning it. It's not their way of doing things, I suppose, but every year I think it's just getting more and more competitive. Like, we see Meabh win it last year, and then, they're kind of how their season unfolded this year, I wouldn't have predicted that either.
Just on that, Meabh.
The headline, Aaron, Meabh to Burca, I won't play with teenagers, is why she retired.
No, I was actually going to ask a question on that as well. Like, do you think, because I think so, I think this, do you think this is the last generation of players where we'll see them sort of playing into their mid to late 30s because of the fact of how much youngsters and how the competition is sort of growing in the league? Because you see now the age profile of the league just getting younger and younger and younger every year.
Well, you'd hope so. I mean, I suppose you'd hope that as the standard rises, that players maybe can't keep playing on at that level because the standard that's coming through is higher than the level that was there before. But, it all depends. That's going to take a while for that to happen because players are going to have to, there's going to have to be enough quantity and quality of the players as well. But yeah, down the line, I'd expect that. Like, you wouldn't see it, you don't see that in other leagues in the world, the top leagues. You don't see that amount of players still playing through to their mid 30s, so I think it is something we'll see less of, I suppose, down the line.
I kind of disagree, to be honest. I actually think we'll probably see it more as players coming through the system look after each other, look after themselves better. We'll get that extra couple of years. Like, you only have to look across the water in America and look at the likes of Christine Sinclair, who I think has only just retired in the last couple of weeks. She was 42, I think, or 41 at that age, and Marta's still playing for down in Florida as well, so in Orlando Pride. So there's still players well into their 30s and even 40s playing at the absolute highest level. But I do think it'll be fewer and fewer. I think we'll see.
Yeah, there'll definitely be outliers for sure. Like, it's not going to stop, but I think just the quantity or the amount of players for each team, I think, will be, and that's that would be a testament to the standard of the players coming through as well, and should flow through as well to the national team as well. Like, you see there's just the quality of players coming through. Hopefully that would mean the standards are rising all the time, so it'll only be a good thing, I think.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts on the game yesterday before we kind of move off that topic? I suppose nobody really saw it coming. Athlone, they'll be happy enough when they look back at it after the initial disappointment wears off of yesterday's performance and result, but they'll be happy enough. The first league title in the bag. It doesn't really get much higher than that. I know Galway would be quite happy to take that off their hands, Meabh, from in your neck of the woods. They'd have been delighted to win the league and lose a cup final. So will Athlone look back at this in a couple of weeks, maybe by Christmas, and kind of go, actually, do you know what? It wasn't the worst season in the world.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, winning the league is definitely the high point for them. And it's just, I suppose, unfortunate the way that they, didn't get really a chance probably to celebrate it properly. They were holding off, I'd imagine, until last night. And then it's kind of a little bit of a downer considering I think just the manner of the defeat. Maybe, had it been a closer game, I think it would have been easier to take, but it really was, a hammering, and that's the only downside to them. But no, definitely when they look back, I mean, the season was their most successful ever. So I don't think they'll be too worried about it. I think Ciaran Kilduff just described it as 45 minutes of mayhem, and that's what it was really. I don't think it was a representation of Athlone as a team and how they have been all season. I suppose that's just the unpredictability of football too. That's why we keep watching. We don't know what's going to happen next. So.
Any defeats you've had so many highs in your career, but are there any defeats that you look back at and go, God, I just wish that hadn't happened? I can't really explain it. It was just a really bad day for us and a really good day for our opponents. Do they crop up in your mind, if you have any even? Do they crop up in your mind?
There's not, or luckily, I think there's not really ones that stand out, but I do remember that final game of the season in PRL Park when we were down 2-0 early against Peamount in the last game of the season. And I remember thinking, if a third goes in, we have to just it's damage limitation at that stage. Even at 2-0, it happened so quickly. And obviously, we all know what happened. Then we ended up, I don't know how, same thing. I don't know how every ball we touched just went into the net as well. It's similar to Shels yesterday, but I do remember at that point thinking, once if this goes to 3, we just have to shut up shop and forget about attacking. And I suppose, in a way, looking on to Athlone yesterday, maybe that was lacking slightly. After when the goals went in quick succession, they only got a huddle together after the 6th goal. And I thought, maybe that could have happened a bit earlier, but it's easy with hindsight. And when things are happening on the big occasion, it's hard to take account of what's happening at the moment. But still, it was just, I suppose, disappointing, for there. for them.
On that, I would have liked to have seen Katie Keane do a Courtney Brosnan.
Yeah.
At 2-0. Just go down, say you've got a bit of an injury, go down, take a minute. Just because you looked upon it and it was just like you were expecting them to do something and sort of. I think it was probably a little bit of the shell shock, like I'm not sounding bad towards Maddie Gibson here, but they didn't have the leader on the park who Larry would have just grabbed them being like, hold on guys, this isn't us. Where Maddie probably is a little bit inexperienced in that sort of cup final captaincy in a big moment, to just know that just like, okay guys, we need to just get together, get a minute, get a breather. Because the thing is, even when the second goal went in and there's a little small gap before the third, like they were just, how would you say, they never sort of looked as though they'd settled, they'd sort of recovered, they'd even got a, like, as I said earlier about Brenda Tabe, that's just frustration because the goals have gone in against them and they're not going their way. Like, that's the biggest thing for Athlone. I think they just got overly frustrated that they didn't necessarily know how to deal with it. Like, you look back at the results, like, when is the last time Shels have beaten Athlone in that magnitude? Probably Athlone's first or second season into the league, and that's how long back. And like, it's just one of them that I think Athlone will have to go away. They'll have to lick their wounds. Shels were awesome in the first half. Second half, they didn't really do an awful lot. They didn't need to do an awful lot. They just mitigated Athlone. But I think Athlone, it's just going to be one of them. You walk away sort of disappointed. But as you have said, it's you have a league title at the end of the day. Something they've only could have dreamed of. As Ciaran said to me last week, when I speak to him last Tuesday, he said when he asked the players before the start of the season who would ever won a league title, no player in that Athlone team had ever won a league title. So you sort of look at that and you're thinking, okay, there's an opportunity here then for us to go and do it. And they've done that. That was their main goal. Yes, it'd be nice to finish with the double, but I think you still celebrate that victory of winning the league.
Question for you, Meabh, and I don't know if you've seen this. It only got announced in the hour before we came on air, but the PFAI have released their team of the season for the Women's League. If you haven't seen it, I'll run through it really quickly for you. Jane Murren in goal, Kiva Keenan, Pearl Slattery, Jessie Rosman, and Eve Dawson across the back. Noelle Murray, Alex Kavanagh, and Dolan is Ellen Dolan, yeah. I was going to say Emma for some reason. Ellen Dolan, Maddie Gibson, Julianne Russell, and Joy Ralph. Myself and Aaron were talking about it off air earlier. We feel there's a few players who probably had a great shout to be included in that. I'm not quite sure who's at whose expense, but there's definitely players who can feel a little bit aggrieved at not getting in there. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, even the keeper alone, I would probably have Amanda McQuillan in, although the only argument is that the defence is so good in front of her that maybe she didn't have a whole lot to do herself. But I think with that amount, I think it was 13 clean sheets maybe in the league, or I'm not 100% sure on it, but I probably would have her in there. It's hard to think now without them in front of me, but yeah, Julianne is obviously the standout player for me anyway during the season, and I thought Maddie Gibson was really good as well. Obviously yesterday wasn't her day, but I thought she was outstanding all through the season. And yeah, it's hard, trying to think who else was in there. I think, yeah, Rossman definitely was worthy of her place as well at the back. She was solid for Athlone.
I suppose from a Galway point of view, Eve Dawson in there too. She's been impressive through this season as well for Galway.
Yeah, she has been. She was injured for part of it too in the run-in, and so that was kind of, I suppose, unusual one in a way that she wasn't there for all of the season. So and also, yeah, but she was solid. She was solid, and she played with the under-19s throughout the year as well. So I suppose when you have as good a defence as Galway, there definitely was going to have to be one Galway defender. But I suppose you could have picked either of the other two as well, Therese Kennevy as well, and Jamie, centre back, who's been ever present. She's the most played the most, I think, of everyone. She was at every game, in every game. So yeah, but Eve had a good season too. Can't remember now. Alex Kavanagh, I think you said was she? Yeah, she again. She was carrying niggles as well, and not in every every game too. It just but she was outstanding, and I thought yesterday as well she was really, really good on the ball. And but Maggie Pearce I thought was excellent from start to finish of the season, and to be honest she would be right up there in my top 3 of the season. So players of the season.
How she's not there is
not sure who was it. Maybe it was selected by players. Sometimes that might. That would.
Because I haven't shut up all year about Maggie Pearce. I think for me, Maggie Pearce. I haven't heard Maggie Pearce, Roisin Malloy, and Julianne Russell are my top 3 players this year.
Yeah. I'd agree with that as well. I'm surprised the 2 of those have not made it into that particular selection. But then it's voted for by the players. I'm surprised, given the way these are done. I know they're done maybe 4 or 5 weeks at least before the end of the season.
This is the interesting part about it. It's when are they done? I think that sort of impacts a lot of things.
And what TV game was the last game before they were done is what really influences it too. And was there an under-19 camp just before it was done? Because players know each other from under-19s, and that's what happened. It's just influence. It's not what happens.
On that, talk to us about this from a player's viewpoint. When you're filling out this form, when you're filling out these sort of forms, was it something that you discussed together as teams, or was it just you went and done it yourself? How did you do it back when you were playing?
Back then, we didn't pick the team of the season. We only picked the player of the season. So we would try to, in order for our votes to count, we would try to kind of almost, at least a few of us are, not influence each other, but try to bounce the ideas off each other, and then go with maybe 1 or 2 or 3 rather than spreading out our votes, because I think they'd become less effective maybe. But in terms of the team of the season, we didn't have a say back then anyway.
Because myself and Aaron were having this hypothetical situation kind of conversation earlier about where a player has left a club and not necessarily burnt bridges, but just there's a little bit of hard feelings that an entire dressing room could basically go pick anybody but this player in that position. Even if it's their friend, they're like going, we just don't want her to win or get nominated because she'd left us last season or the season before. Like, does that come into it, or are we maybe overthinking it a bit too much?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a certain amount of unconscious bias that I think it would come into it. And I think also sometimes if there's a particular team that maybe the other teams in the league don't take a shine to as much as others, maybe then your influence, if it's a toss up between a centre back for one team that you don't particularly like, or that that you had a run in with, or and then a really close centre back of another team, that they're really even, then maybe that could influence your decision as well. So it's kind of, I think, again, like if players are playing together on an underage international team, and you're good friends with them in that, and they've performed well in an international tournament, then again you're going to think that they've had a better season maybe than a player in the league who did just as well.
This is something I don't like. Okay, this is something I don't like, is if it's a player of the year or it's a team of the year in terms of things, like, I understand, and players probably do it as an unconscious in terms of international recognition and stuff like that. But like, it should only be judged on what you do in the league and what you do. And I think that I find that it's something that happens a lot across football. It's probably something that happens because some people don't think of it. Some people probably do it because they see the publicity and stuff like that. It's a very interesting one, because like, if you look at the under-19s this summer, some of the players who've done superb for the under-19s this summer didn't always transcend into the club form, but yet others who maybe done very well carried that form into the club form, and it was like a bit of a hit and miss compared to the squad. And like, it's the one thing when you look at these sort of votes, it's when the players vote, it's always a case of who, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, Meabh, are they allowed to vote for their own players in their own club?
No, well, we weren't anyway when we were picking the player of the year. You weren't allowed to pick your own. But I think also, like, you have to think that a lot of players in the league don't watch the other games, so they're basing it on either their own game that week or, again, what was on the TG Car that week, because a lot of them won't watch the LOI TV streams as well. So again, even just take Eve as an example. She scored in two TV games, and of course I think she is deserved. I think she's like I said, she did have a great season, but there is also that factor in, either if you played when you played that team who scored against you that day, or who did well in midfield, or that type of thing. So it mightn't always be 100% accurate, because obviously not all the players are watching all the games. No one's watching all of the games in the league every week, and that's the reality. Like,
this guy is.
Yeah, apart from Aaron and maybe Breifne as well. You're watching a good few, I think.
Assume Aaron is, and maybe Breifne. Thanks, Meabh. I'll remember that. No. But in terms of that, we got to move on from this now, because we could spend all day talking about kind of awards and team selections, and they're all very subjective anyway. But we have talked a little bit about post-match reactions from the game yesterday, and Ciaran Kilduff talking about kind of the reaction from his players. But one thing we haven't mentioned yet properly is Ciaran Kilduff's post-match announcement through Athlone Town that he's left the club. He becomes, I think, the 5th managerial vacancy that to arise since the end of the season. I know one's already been filled in Treaty. We've got 4 left. We're not quite sure who's going to be in charge of Waterford when they come in, and 3 other positions. Athlone, Sligo and Wexford have all got vacant positions at the moment as well. Good opportunity for coaches who might be looking to make that step up, but for the clubs from here, where do they go? I suppose maybe I'll start with you, Meabh, in terms of what's this coming about? Is this happening because of the pressure that's attached and the time commitment that's attached, and maybe the lack of reward in a lot of these clubs in terms of the compensation for these managers, or is it just clubs maybe not having the right fit, or what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's hard to know, and I suppose each manager that has left their role probably might be doing it for different reasons too. And there's no doubt it's a huge, time commitment. That's for sure. Just not even with the training and the games themselves, but obviously all of the background work that needs to be done with that. And like you said, each year I think that probably becomes more and more. And many of them have jobs, their full-time jobs outside of it too. So that kind of or their personal circumstances, their family life, that type of thing. I mean, it just mightn't suit year to year as well. But again, in other cases, they mightn't agree with how the club has been run, or different aspects. It's hard to read into it, because maybe it's just coincidence that a lot of them have left at the same time, or else, again, like it is hard to know. But I know that if Ciaran's decision was made, it wasn't nothing to do with that result yesterday. It was had been in the plans, I'd imagine. You're not going to announce it right after a game like that. So but in terms of the others as well, I don't know, maybe they've run its course, or maybe they're also decisions that the club has made and then they're publicly saying they're by mutual consent. Who knows?
Aaron, you've got your finger on the pulse of a lot of this stuff. Can you shed any light on individual situations?
Yeah, like the Ciaran Kilduff one's probably a little bit surprising in the sense of timing. Like, yes, he's going to be linked to absolutely every job. He's going to be linked to every women's job, every men's job. Like, you could see, there was no doubt about it, that he was definitely exhausted when you look at him. When you looked at him post game yesterday, I think probably a lot of people are probably a bit surprised in terms of the nature as to what's going on, or as to when it's happened, just because it's so soon after the game. Like I've said to you, I've had conversations with you, Breifne, about exactly what you've said there. Brave said there about certain managerial vacancies, and like when you look at the likes of Sligo, you look at the likes of Treaty. They're two to me that sort of come to mind. Like when I read the Treaty press release, it more sounded as if the club had made the decision to go to part ways with Dominic Foley, rather than Foley deciding that enough he was going. And Tommy Ewell leaving Sligo Rovers. We've talked about how difficult it's been for Sligo Rovers this year, and he was somebody who, you'd expect to pop up. I wouldn't be surprised to see him take one of these vacancies that does appear in this off season. And then the other question is will we see one in Shamrock Rovers, or will we see one in Peamount United? They're the two that people are probably watching. Yes, Colin O'Neill said he wants to stay on. Will the club back him the way they backed Stephen Bradley? That remains to be seen. And then James O'Callaghan, it's, does he have the desire to go again? It's a big job at Peamount, considering players who've they don't necessarily have the depth or things that they would have had in previous years. I think you look at a lot of it, it's probably a bit of both, Breifne, and what you've said in terms of reward, in terms of commitment and stuff like that. The commitment that's happening within the women's league, it's getting a lot bigger. It's getting a lot more year on year. And like it's not like, even from just covering games, I can hardly imagine what the amount that coaches go through. And like, I was having conversations with people over the weekend, and one thing that was sort of said to me is, I think this league works best, or managers work best in this league, when there's nearly an off the field manager and then a head coach, in the sense that the amount of work that's actually required from managers, and that's come from somebody within a club that I was speaking to yesterday, saying like the amount of work, and I know personally from seeing the work that the likes of Pat Ray would have done at Bowes, hours upon hours upon hours of work. Like, it's not just you rock up the show and coach the team. It's not that anymore. It's never, and I think that takes its toll on a lot of managers as well. And I wouldn't be surprised until we start seeing the likes of women's directors of footballs and stuff like that coming into the clubs, that we see a higher and higher turnover. I also think the fact that clubs are starting to financially put money in as well is going to more money in is going to see pressure on managers as well to actually deliver results. And I think over the next couple of years we'll see more and more managers leaving, and we'll see more and more leaving within seasons as well.
Meabh, have you applied for any of the jobs? Have you had your agent on Athlone or Sligo looking for an interview?
No, I think I'll stick to the accounting for now anyway. Yeah, no, I won't be applying for any this season, that's for sure.
Can we not see you and Laura Donovan doing a bit of a tag team?
yeah, who knows down the line, won't rule anything out.
In terms of those positions, there's 4 of them still vacant as it stands now. Of course, that's officially, there's obviously things going on behind the scenes that we may or may not have heard whispers about, but who do you see filling those gaps? And maybe who do you see been in that discussion? We've mentioned Albin Heisa on the show numerous times because of the work he did at Treaty. Could he be in the frame? Is Tommy Hewitt maybe in for a return to Athlone, or maybe would he be looking towards the southeast to one of the vacancies down there?
Yeah, possibly. It's actually really hard to call. And then, Tommy could, if he wants to get back in, I'm sure he'd be able to fill in any of those posts. But I think as well, you probably look at maybe from the female side as well, there might be a whole lot of, it's hard to call off the top of my head, but you'd want A license, I suppose, coaches ideally. I don't know if that's a requirement. I think it is the requirement now, but at least B license coaches. So yeah, it'd be good to see maybe another female, obviously if they're the right person for the job. You look at the likes of Laura Heffernan, who's done, considering the amount of, I suppose, turnover or attrition in UCD this year. I think she's done a or DLR. I can't remember what they got. I still think they got DLR. But anyway, yeah, she's done a great job there with them, and yeah, it would be good to see maybe another female or two within the league as well. But it's definitely a really demanding job and thankless at times. Obviously, if you're at the top end of the table, you're getting a reward for the whole season of work. But you look at all the other teams from third down, and they didn't. Obviously Galway, got silverware as well, but from fourth down, it's a tough role to take on, I think.
That was something that Ciaran Kilduff sort of alluded to me when I spoke about the pre-match, pre-media event on Tuesday about, the other managers from who don't win silverware, how they don't necessarily get the thank. It's thankless to them considering the effort that they put in, and they put in as much effort as, say, someone like him who wins the league. And I think managers within the league, I think, when you look at them, they're all aware of the commitment, and I think it's something that, like, nowadays it's not 2 nights a week where you used to just rock up, train Tuesday, Thursday, that's it. It's at least 3 nights a week. It's all the preparation work. If you don't have your own video analysis and guys who are breaking the games down, if you're nearly having to do all that sort of stuff. And like you did mention Tommy Hewitt. I asked him yesterday, can we see him back in the league? And the answer I sort of got is he's got a bit of an itchy knuckles to see, can he get an opportunity to get back into the league and have another crack at it. And I think the problem is with clubs need to just be careful about who they appoint. I want to see clubs take the time and actually go do their due diligence before they make appointments of anybody. And I think maybe sometimes we see with clubs, it's that if you don't get the right fit, it has a knock-on effect, not just that season, but it can have a knock-on effect for multiple seasons down the line. I think clubs at this level now, because of what's being put in and what's at stake, they're going to be a little bit more patient than they were, like we've seen with some of the men's clubs at times, taking that extra week or two. I don't expect to see any appointments over the next week or two. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't say. Do
you think they might wait till the end of the men's season?
I think if you look at Wexford, I think Wexford's advertisements, the closing date is the 1st of the 4th of November. So they're sort of giving it a couple of weeks. you'd imagine that they would wait. But the other side of it is, and I don't want to sound disrespectful to any coach who's in men's football, men's and women's football in terms of coaching, it's a completely different ball game. You know, you need to be able to give that information the way the women take the information on. They take the information on a lot differently, and it takes a skilled coach to make the transition from men's football to women's football. It's easier to make the transition from women's football to men's football. It's easier, but going the other way, it's harder, and it takes the right coach to be able to do that.
Well, every day is a school day. I've just had to Google what itchy knuckles means. Thanks for educating me, Aaron. I'd never heard that phrase before. Let's talk about the women's international team before we wrap up the show. And of course, two very important games this week this week and next against Georgia. Away first on Friday night, home on Tuesday night. We have got a fairly good record, fairly high scoring record against Georgia in recent years. I know we beat them, was it 9-0 and maybe 11-0 at some stage in the last few seasons.
Mm-hmm. They're the only two times we played them.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to see that level of results, a 20-0 aggregate score, but we might see 6 or 7 comfortably. Is that what we should be expecting across the two legs over the next 2 weeks?
I think so. I mean, I feel like, I think they're 118th in the world or something. We're 24th. So the huge gap, there really are. It's a massive gap between them. So I just think, it might take us, like I was saying earlier, it might take us some time just to adapt from playing. You know, obviously we've been playing the League A teams and competing with them versus just changing it up. Obviously been comfortable having the majority of the possession again and just working through different things in terms of our attacking play rather than just the focus on the defending. So I'd expect to really comfortable victories, I think, to be honest. I think that's the interesting thing will be Courtney Brosnan, won't be available for the first game, so whether Grace Maloney will start, I'd expect her to start, or else maybe Sophie Whitehouse might get her first cap. She's been around, in fairness, for a long time to have not gotten any cap. So, one of those will obviously be playing, I think, in the first game at least.
This is the sort of thing that I've said to you, Breifne, on this show an awful lot. February 2022 was the last time a different goalkeeper's played in goal. And this is where it's caught us out to where nobody or the goalkeeper's played in goal for Ireland since then. I think Courtney's on like 35, 36 game streak where she's played in goal every game. And that's the sort of problem where, when this situation, but the other side of it is I look back to it now and I'm sort of thinking, Courtney, really? She's suspended because she got 2 yellow cards for time wasting. She got a yellow card for time wasting in the opening game in Metz, and then she got a yellow card in Porky-Queeve for time wasting against France. Like, surely somebody should have said to her on the last day, listen, Courtney, be very careful here today. No stupid yellow cards for time wasting. We don't need that sort of stuff because it's so preventable. Like I'd
raise a different approach to that problem. Is that you got one in France. I wouldn't be like, if you look at it on paper, we're playing Georgia, we've beat 20-0 in aggregate the last 2 times we played them. Should be a gimme game. I do think you're right, but I also think that I don't think it's a thing where we'd have gone, well, doesn't really matter how we get on.
But I know it's not going to impact you, but I'm going to bring you back to a different situation. Jamie Finn got a yellow card in the last qualifier in the last World Cup campaign where she missed the Slovakia away game. She then didn't play in Scotland. She barely featured then for the rest of it's not going to happen, but players sort of, this is the sort of thing at international football is it's a weird thing that anything can happen. Yes, I expect Courtney to be in goal, but when Jamie got that yellow and got suspended for a game, all of a sudden she didn't make the 23 in the World Cup, and it's sort of like it's one of them that if it's needless, I'd say avoid it. Like, I need to check it out, and I haven't actually checked it out. I'm not sure if yellow cards carry over because I know we did have 6 players who were 1 game away. Well, I don't think they do that. We're 1 game away from it. But like,
I'd imagine they get white.
I'm not 100%
these are the sort of games though. If you get 2 yellow cards in, you miss a game. Like, because you're looking at, no disrespect to Georgia, but we should just come through comfortably here, and then you're all guns ahead to either Wales or Slovakia, where more than likely it will be Wales, and you're in a fight for a spot for the Euro. So like, you don't want to see any player sort of going in there on the risk of missing either of them 2 games, because them next 2 games in December are a really important one for me.
Some new names in the squad. Ella Malloy returns to the squad after, I suppose, a long injury, mainly
after the airplane trip. We only said this last week.
Your words, not mine, but I might be thinking it. The magic airplane to Sheffield has put her in the Ireland squad. A couple of other names back in there. I know we saw Marissa Shiva in the squad the last camp. Didn't make an appearance from the bench. That's got to be frustrating. Ciara Cruz is back after missing that camp as well. So they're coming. It's a 12-hour journey from the far side of the United States. It's a ridiculously long trip. It's grand if you get to play, but if you don't get to play at the end of that, how long do you stick coming across for that? Like, Meabh, I suppose you would have had a lot of travel as an international player yourself back in the day when you were based in Sweden, maybe. Is that frustrating when you're just coming to sit on a bench in a cold and rainy day in November or October in Tala?
I mean, I suppose you don't know till you're there, and you're always trying to fight for your place too. And I'm sure Marissa, like Ciaran and the rest of them they'll be training as well. And I suppose there's a lot more involved. Obviously, the game is when you want to play in as well, but you're involved in the whole camp too, and a build up and lots of training and different kind of involvement from that side too. So I suppose it depends on the players themselves. But I wouldn't have really seen many players, quit it just because they might be playing, or as well, like Aaron said, I suppose it's funny. International football definitely is, it kind of comes and goes in different kind of patterns as well. Like you could come in one camp and be the flavour of the month, and then the next camp maybe just not be selected or that. So it's definitely something to consider. But I think it'd be just interesting to see now who plays. And I think Ella Malloy came off injured actually at the weekend in a game for Sheffield United. So hopefully that's not too serious.
Update I got today from the FAI is there was no real concerns over injuries at the moment.
Good to hear. So yeah, she's been
obviously they'll come back. But like for me, I don't see Ciara Cruz starting either of these two games. I think realistically you have to go with Leanne Kiernan and Julianne Russell. I think the impact that the two of them had in the second half against England and then the French game, I think you have to go with them again. And like it's interesting when you look at the squad. Megan Campbell's injured, Rusha Littlejohn's injured, Emily Murphy's was unavailable. Lucy Quinn was the one that's probably surprising a lot of the fans in the sense that there was no status given her whether she's definitely not injured because she played at the weekend for last week at Birmingham and she's been the player of the month last month. So like that's another where it's sort of who's in favour, who's not in favour at the minute. And like international football, it is a very strange one. But listen, I think for me, it's just about getting over this week. These next two games, no injuries, no nothing. Just come away from that trip to Georgia. Like it's a horrible trip. It's a 7-hour flight. It's a 3-hour time difference as well. So it's just get over there, get back, play that second leg, and hopefully come through. No injuries, nothing unscathed, and then it's all guns blazing then to December. But I think this is an important camp for the fact that they haven't been in since the summer. It's been a long gap since that French game on the 16th of July.
For me, the biggest surprise of the squad announcement was the Megan Connolly of Lazio. That one seemed to miss me by when the transfers were happening at the tail end of the summer. So that's kind of adds a new dimension. I know we've had Italian-based players before. I know off the top of my head, I know Niamh Fahey was in Italy for a while. I think Louise
was in France maybe, but I think Steph was there.
Steph was there.
Definitely.
But anyway, lots of potential. Another person who missed out is one of our favourites as well. Oh God, I'm going completely blank today. Crystal Palace player, centre back, Hayley Nolan. Not in the squad again. I think that's a player who.
I'm nearly certain Hayley is injured, if I'm not mistaken. She hasn't been playing for Palace. She was ever consistent last year, ever consistent for London City Lionesses the year before. As far as I know, Hayley is injured, but Izzy and Abby are only getting limited game time as well. So they'll be two that'll be looking to come in this week and sort of see can they put any sort of impression on the Ireland camp.
Now that you mention those three, because I did watch that video that the FAI put out, a day in the life of Abby or Izzy, I can't remember which one, but it was kind of both of them more or less. And one of them's living with Hayley in London. But there's a lot of content available online about women soccer players internationally as well. We've talked before about the Matildas show, but there's a new one. I think it's on Netflix, although it could be talking about the wrong streaming platform, about 11 NWSL players who spent preseason together to get ready for preseason. It's a reality show, basically. I think it's on Netflix, and I can't remember what it's called. It's called Game. I'll have to double check it, but I haven't started watching it yet. But it looks great. Off season, maybe might be what it's called. But we're seeing an awful lot more of these players making it in the media and kind of becoming personalities. Maybe is that a good thing from, I suppose, back when you were playing, which isn't that long ago? You're only retired 2 or 3 seasons. Do you see an awful lot more of these girls getting profile and the youngsters kind of been more impressed and more engaged and I suppose, for want of a better word, influenced by the actions of these players as public personas now?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. Like you see it in the men's game, as well. They're more out there as well, and definitely more of a kind of interest in it. And I think that kind of stuff definitely appeals. And it would be interesting. Like I would think back to our 10 weeks in Indiana back in 2009. We were there. We all lived together with the Irish team, and if we had cameras following us around then, I think it would have made for interesting viewing anyway. But definitely, I think. People it's just the nature of social media now and everything. People do want to know more about the people behind the players and, their lifestyle and that type of thing. And I think it can be a good thing, just showing the various different ways how professional footballers live and that type of thing as well. I think it's an interesting insight to give to people, and definitely influencing, the teenagers in terms of them being role models as well is a big factor in that.
I think the fandom in women's football now is massive. And, I think this is the opportunity to sort of get that exposure as well. And the thing is, a lot of the content is being done right. It's not trying to hang players out to dry to show things that shouldn't be shown. A lot of the content is very good. Like I've only watched the first couple of minutes of the Australian one the USA one from the World Cup. I still mean to sit down and watch it, but like, that sort of thing, because they've such a high profile. I think all of these sort of things, once they're done right, are good for women's football.
I think the show I'm talking about.
I think there's another one. There's another one, Breifne, coming on the league. I think we'll have seen the cameras sort of following.
That's the one on the Women's National League. It's got 11 NWSL players from across all the different teams. So interesting. Very much looks more like a reality show than a football show, but that's I suppose to be seen over the next couple of weeks as the episodes drop on, I think, Twitter exclusively, but I'm not quite sure. Do check it out. It's called The Off Season, but probably worth a look for any fans of the game. Maybe before we let you go, your predictions for the next 3 or 4 months. With no League of Ireland women's football, will we see new faces on the pitch or in the dugout over the next couple of weeks? Any thoughts of who might fill those gaps?
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll definitely, but like Aaron said, I think maybe that, I wouldn't expect anything to happen too soon as well. I think players as well as management will need a long break after the season, and obviously it doesn't start back again until February, March time. So there is that bit of a gap. I think people just would like a break, I suppose. Definitely the players, I'm sure, will go off and take a holiday or that. But it'll be interesting to see who fills them. But it's hard to judge, hard to know. Often names crop up that you mightn't have thought of, or that, or players or former players maybe who've played, or coaches that have been out of the game for a while as well. So definitely, I mean, a lot of people are going through the FAI pathway of getting their UEFA licenses. So this could be someone off that conveyor belt, filling in the gaps, I'd say, next season.
I'm pretty sure.
Just to clarify what Meabh said earlier, Breifne, it's UEFA A requirement for the league.
Yeah. Meabh, thanks very much for joining us. I know you've had a busy 24 hours with the Cup final with RT, and of course, this isn't your first women's soccer podcast of the day. So we do thank you for taking the time to make yourself available to us. Aaron, as always, pleasure to have you on the show as well. We'll be back next week, I suppose, with a look back at the international fixtures once we've played both legs of that game, and maybe with a look to the hopefully playoff final against Slovenia or Scotland or Wales later in the year. So all to play for. We could have another European Championship, say another major championships in Euro 25 for the Irish girls. Hopefully to look forward to. We won't know that for another 6 or 8 weeks or so. Around the same period of time as when the player registration window to move teams, and we kind of start to see a big flurry at the start of December about who's going to be playing where next year. So we can look forward to that as well. Meabh, thanks for joining us. We will be back with you again next week. Talk to you then.